Today on Locked On Red Wings, Dylan Larkin and Jonatan Berggren both scored twice to carry Detroit over the Canucks.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as the freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. And Scotty, before that game started at noon, which, by the way, love noon starts. I wish, well, maybe not during the week, but I wish every weekend game started at noon. Fantastic stuff. But it was discovered that Raymond and Jake Walman were going to be out in this game. The first career game that Raymond has ever missed.
Yeah.
And Walman, having him missing, meant Ben Sherratt and Moritz Seider were back together. It felt like a game where the Red Wings are going to have their work cut out for them, missing one of their best defensemen and missing one of their best forwards against a offensive heavy Vancouver Canucks. But, you know, when you look back on that game as it happened, it felt like it was a very Red Wings win in the end. And everything we knew flaw-wise, the Vancouver Canucks played out exactly as you thought it would.
Yeah. I think when we look back at this game, it will definitely fall into the same mix that so many wins this season have. And that's that. I think the Red Wings were outplayed for a majority of this hockey game, but look, we just have to start with this. The Vancouver Canucks goaltending situation is horrid. I mean, that's brutal. Like, I mean, genuinely, I think there, two periods at least, the Wings got pretty heavily outplayed at 5-on-5, and it just didn't matter at all because of how poor Vancouver is between the pipes. So, like, we'll take a win. And that's not to say that there weren't good performances or that this was like some awful, terrible game. Like, but I think that they did get outplayed and it just didn't matter. And that's probably, if I had to guess, I don't get to watch too much Canucks hockey just because they're out on the West, but I would imagine that that's probably a reoccurring theme and a conversation that they have within their fan base quite a lot this season.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The Red Wings got outshot 34-25 and put up 5 goals. And to remind you, the Red Wings got outshot 34-25, and the Red Wings had 6 power plays in this game. The first 3 of which the Red Wings had 0 shots on. Vancouver Canucks go on 1 power play and immediately score. So, I mean, that tells the tale of how badly the Red Wings got outplayed at even strength, not to mention, of course, the analytics. The Red Wings came out flying, had 2 goals on 2 shots, which was awesome, but also just, again, reiterates how bad their goaltending is. Spencer Martin in this game had a goal saved above expected, Scotty, of -3. That means that analytics say, however much stock you put into that, if you have none, cool. But analytics say that the Red Wings should not have, or the Spencer Martin should not have allowed 3 of those 5 goals. That is what it is. He let in those 3 of those 5 goals. It's great to see. But this Vancouver Canucks team is everything that we thought they were. They have a very good offense. They went on the power play and immediately scored. They put up 36 shots, but man, 2 goals on 2 shots, and just they were pretty goals. Don't get me wrong. They were nice plays, but I mean, you took advantage of a team that does not know how to play defense, even though you yourself don't know how to play defense either.
Right. That's a good way to put it, bud. Yeah. I think, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. We can transition into it now, I guess, if you want. But like, this defensive performance from the Wings was so on brand. And like last game, we had talked about, this was a weird change of pace. Like they did the opposite, right? Like they were, what was that against Edmonton? I already can't remember who we played.
Edmonton and Calgary, 1 and 2.
Calgary, yeah, that's who it was. And we were like, this is so weird. We're allowing a lot of shots, but none of them are high danger. This is great. We'll take it. And then this game just reverted right back to what we've been doing. And we're just going to rehab the conversation that we've had 50 times this year already with this one. Like this was, there's the heat map up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. We'll get to ours in a second. But starting with the defense, I mean, that's the most on-brand heat map like ever. Like there's just a giant dark blue circle right in front of the net, and everywhere else is just kind of sporadic shots. But they got a ton of opportunities right in front of the net. It's just, again, thankfully, and we talked about it in the preview. Like if you can just outscore Vancouver, like you're good, and a lot of times you can because of how bad their goaltending is. So
yeah, and and props to Ville Husso in this game. Blocking or making 34 saves for a 9.41 save percentage. His goal saved above expected was about half a goal. Nothing like amazing, but like he does in most situations, he goes out there and gives you a chance to win, and he did in this game as well because you can see it. This is stock standard, like you said, Scotty, for how Detroit's defense plays. You get a ton of high danger opportunities right down low in front. Calgary, like you said, was an outlier. And how they did a great job of keeping all those shots that Calgary had. I keep wanting to say Vancouver. All those shots Calgary had to the outside. But this game was revert to the norm. And the defensive pairings were switched up quite a bit. And Moritz Seider and Ben Sherratt, I actually thought had a really solid game together. In fact, if you look at all the analytics, the Corsi, the expected goals for, if you go to hockey stat cards, they're near the top. And that's because they both had 2 assists. They both assisted on the first 2 goals of the game. And we'll talk about those 2 plays because they were really nice. And that Berggren goal was just beautiful. But you didn't have a lot of opportunities. You can see it on the Red Wings heat map, Scott, if you want to talk about that now. Red Wings had 1 shot basically out front in front of Spencer Martin in this game. And that was the Berggren redirection goal, which was the second one. There is just a lack of anything that happened inside the slot for the Detroit Red Wings in this game. Most of your shots came from the point or right there where Larkin scored his goal, which is that red shot, red mark by the circle on the left side.
Yeah, this is a heat map that you look at and you go, okay, this is a game in which this team was not able to get any momentum going on offense. Their opportunities were few and far between, and they probably lost this one, especially when looking at the opponent's heat map too, but only if we're just focusing on the offense. That's a game that I think most people look at and go like, wow, this offense really just didn't gain any traction. And yet if you watch the game, obviously that wasn't true. And again, I don't want to be a broken record, but like it's hard to truly like, I'm going to keep reiterating how poor Vancouver's goaltending was because that was a really rough performance. And that's something, again, that they've been dealing with all season. So you took advantage of their weakness. That's a win. That's great. We'll gladly take it. But the offense was not some great machine just like pumping out opportunities. And the sets they had in the offensive zone weren't anything that were overly impressive or just like maintained any amount of time, honestly. And we've talked about all that at length this year as well. It was really a same story, different day type of game. It's just that they came out on top because they took advantage of some poor goaltending. Just for context, like Vancouver, I'm pretty sure only had 1 player with an expected goals for percentage of under 50% on like out of everyone on the team that took the ice.
I can actually check that right now. Just give me one
That's
second.
unless I'm just making that up. That's insanity.
You actually, every single player on their team at 5-on-5 had above 50% Corsi for.
There you go. So you're right. So Corsi 4 all above 50, and I think the expected goals for there's 1 player.
Yeah, you're right. It was Ekman Larson.
Yeah, right. And then like everyone else was above 50. Quinn Hughes is fantastic, by the way.
Oh God, he's so good.
Just he's so fun to watch. That's one of the perks of this week of this week of kind of going out west and playing teams we usually don't play and whatnot. We get to see some of the talent out there. And yeah, Quinn Hughes is definitely an incredible talent. Very fun to watch.
Yeah. I feel like we've been pretty negative so far, and there were positives to take away from this game, but we just want to hammer home that this wasn't some incredible performance by the Wings. It was mostly just the horrible goaltending by the Canucks. But like you said, Scotty, we will take it.
Yeah,
we'll take the win.
Absolutely.
Getting 5 goals is an incredible confidence booster. They scored twice on the power play after going the first 3 without one.
Right.
But we'll talk about those as well. We'll talk about the fact that Berggren and Larkin both had 2 goals. Larkin had a 3-goal game or 3-point game. Like there were some huge positives. So we kind of got the negatives out of the way. We talked about the
Yeah, I
things
don't want
that,
to make it sound like this
yeah,
was some like the Wings just lucked into a victory and that this was some awful performance by Detroit. And like, how did we win this hockey game? Like, I'm not trying to make it sound that bad. It's just, I think pretty objectively got outplayed for 2 of 3 periods and yet still came out on top. So we'll take those.
this was absolutely a game where
Find a
both
way to win.
teams, this was one of those games where both teams' flaws showed, but
Yeah.
our flaws were less crucial to the game. So, but first, when we come back, we'll finish this conversation or continue this conversation rather about this 5-2 win over the Vancouver Canucks. But first, I got to talk to everyone today about Athletic Greens. Our next partner is a product you got to use literally every day. Start taking AG1 because with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all those things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything. Tons of people take some kind of multivitamin, and it's important to choose one with high-quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. AG1 is a small micro habit with big benefits. It's one thing you can do every day to take care of yourself. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Said daily twice there. Don't worry about it. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. So Dylan Larkin, Scotty, is doing his best to secure the bag at this point. If I recall correctly, he has got 47 points in 51 games or 48 points in 51 games played now. I'm just trying to recall that off to my head, so it might be off by a point or two or a game or two. And he's also really close to reclaiming a 30-goal pace after that 2-goal performance, 3-point performance by him as well, as he had an assist also later in the game. He had a phenomenal game offensively.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, he was great, man. Like you said, it certainly makes big games like that certainly hold a little bit more weight, and I think a lot of people kind of pay attention a little bit more, and it sparks a lot of conversation when it's in the midst of extension talks. I am not one to believe that like one game is going to change too terribly much, but I mean, you go on a little bit of a heater, it certainly can't hurt. So, but great game. I mean, truly, I thought that in this one, actually, it's also important to note that Larkin, I thought, played pretty decent defense. And that's something that we haven't talked about a ton this year just because of how porous the defense has been. But I didn't think he had he had a bad game necessarily defensively either. He had a couple of that I remember. I think at the end of the first period, maybe beginning of the second, somewhere around there, he had a couple like consecutive pokes that led to breaks, and so that's just something I wanted to point out too. But yeah, obviously a great offensive performance, couple of really nice goals. So
Yeah, I thought he played really well. His shot selection on both those goals was really nice.
yeah,
That first goal and turn was really nice as well. And then the Jonatan Berggren goal. He also had 2 goals in this game. He's been, he's not some, I've said this before, he's not some superstar rookie caliber player, but he is a really, really good, well-rounded player who looks comfortable in the NHL right off the bat. I think defensively, he still leaves a little bit to be desired, but he's still a rookie, so I'm not worried about it yet. Offensively, he's always in the right spot. His hockey IQ is really good. So he's just been really fun to watch. That redirection, that entire play by Seider to Sherratt. First of all, Moritz Seider somehow, this is like with the third game in a row. He did it against Edmonton on Joe Veleno's goal, and he did it now against Vancouver, where he does this thing where he draws a defender towards him, and then he does like a behind the back pass to the guy opposite him. And both times it's resulted in a goal. First time he did behind the back pass to Veleno, who shot the puck, scored. Then he did behind the back pass to Sherratt, who fed it down to Berggren for a beautiful redirection and scored. And man, that pairing did not look good early in the year, and I'm not, one game of looking good together. I'm not going to be like, get them back together because he and Walman look so good. But it was nice to see that, like, at the beginning of the game, I was like, oh, no, not Sherratt and Seider again. Like, we know this pair doesn't work. I understand, like, it's who else are you going to pair with Seider? But I was nervous, and they looked competent, I thought. And that's 2 games in a row. I thought Sherratt looked pretty good. And it seems like hopefully, he's like maybe learning his lesson on not taking himself out of the play. Because when he doesn't take himself out of the play, he's actually effective. It's just that he always chases hits. So, like, hopefully.
Yeah, I think hopefully, not maybe.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm just hoping, please, God. Because, like, last game, Ben Sherratt did lead the team in blocked shots with, like, 6, which is insane. The next best player had, like, 2. So he's not afraid of putting his body. I don't know. It's like Sherratt's just an enigma, man. I don't want to get into, like, a Sherratt conversation because he's talented and he has the capability of being such an effective defender, and then he's just not. Last 2 games, he has been.
So,
it's like
a pretty accurate way to put it.
He has all the tools, and you're like, this guy, I can see, like, I see why general managers value him, but just he gets on the ice, and then he's just not. And it's like, why are you doing these things? Ben Sherratt. Last 2 games, he's been good, and I've liked it. And I'm like, this is the guy you're paying $4 million to be. Anyways.
I mean, I think that's probably all fair, man. And like you said, I think the biggest point in this game is just the fact that he that pairing was not a complete liability like it has on several occasions, to say the least, this season.
Can I also ask, what the hell was JT Miller thinking?
No, you can't ask that.
Like, yes, Filip Hronek was absolutely holding on to his stick.
Yeah,
but
that was
if
weird.
you're trying to draw a penalty, punching the guy in the back of the head 3 times is usually the wrong way of doing. Like, he was mad when they called the penalty on him and not Hronek or Olimata. Sorry, Olimata had that stick. Hronek skated by afterwards, and it's just like, usually if you try and tug on your stick and you like have your arm up, that'll draw the ref's attention. The ref will look at you. But if you just straight punch the guy in the back of the head 3 times, they're going to see that and call you on a penalty. And then when you get mad that they called you for a penalty because you punched a guy in the head 3 times in a row, then shoving a guy who's just skating by is also not a good follow-up. Of course, the Red Wings didn't score on that, and they couldn't score in the first 3 power play opportunities. And it's very frustrating.
How could this have happened?
It is.
Like, I don't know what you want, dude. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I agree. That was a weird moment, but.
Yeah, and the Red Wings power play did, though, get going later on. They did score twice on 6 opportunities. One was Dylan Larkin's other goal, and the other one was Jonatan Berggren's other goal, which was nice to see that finally got going. And then Filip Hronek, actually, Ken Daniels called that one earlier in the game. Ken Daniels said, Filip Hronek hasn't had a goal in like 20 games. He's due. And then, of course, in the third period, he just rifles one home from the top of the slot. It was a nice shot.
Yeah, it was. I thought that just as a whole, the power, and like we looked at the heat map earlier and whatnot, and the offense certainly had kind of a hard time just like holding its ground, I think, throughout this game. Like,
generating
it was one of those
shots.
things where they didn't ever have established pressure for more than like a set or 2. And I thought on the power play that was slightly different, and just that they not for all 6, but there was some sets ran and some maintained possession, especially on, I would say, probably half of them. So definitely something to check off in like the positive box, the positive side of things. But still, as most things with this game and with this season, still a work in progress, but we'll take it, and we'd like to see it.
Again, and it was a very flawed game for both teams. And in the end, I think it was Vancouver's poor goaltending that is the reason the Red Wings won more than anything. But it was a fun game to watch, without a doubt. I mean, 5 goals for is fun. Also, David Perron has suddenly become cursed on the power play. That's 2 games in a row. The first game against Calgary, he got robbed by Vlader. And then last night, or 2 nights ago, by the time people are listening to this, against Vancouver, he hit the post on the first power play. So I said the Red Wings didn't have a shot in the first 3 power plays. Well, yes, that's because when you hit the post, it doesn't count as a shot. He beat Martin clean and
Right.
just rang it off the post. He has become cursed in the power play. It's unlucky for that man.
Very.
When we come back, I do want to talk about Ville Husso. We haven't really mentioned, we mentioned him, but we haven't talked about him. But then we'll get into our game preview of, who guessed it, Vancouver Canucks.
It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be a great preview. I'm sure you guys won't have any idea what to expect us to talk about. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. It's the midway point of the NBA season, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Let's look at some hockey betting that you can do today, Scotty. It's Sunday, so by the time people are listening to this, these odds are going to be gone already. But let's take a look at that Anaheim Ducks Vegas Golden Knights game. I know you're a big Anaheim Ducks guy. They are playing on the road at Vegas at 3 p.m., and Vegas is a -360 favorite money line.
They probably should be.
I think they probably should be too.
The Ducks are not good.
The over-under, though, it's even odds, -110 for both over and under 6.5. I would say over, though.
I would take the over on that,
I'd
too.
take the over as well, because Vegas can score, Anaheim can score, but Anaheim doesn't have a defense or goaltending. So
this ain't 2017 John Gibson in that anymore. Yeah,
absolutely is not. So plus FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout on a same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockdown. That's FanDuel.com/lockdown to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. You know, we're going to look really stupid, Scotty, if we, just on the fly did that conversation about the Vegas Golden Knights, and of course Anaheim comes in and upsets them at home. That'd look real bad for us.
We look stupid enough, just like in general.
I mean, we look like Legos apparently. So
that was crazy, dude.
I loved that comment. I love the comment that said you look like a Lego piece, and I love the reply that said LOL. Brian kind of does too. we do read the YouTube comments, guys. We do read them. So when you say ridiculous stuff like that, it gets seen. All right.
Brian just sends me a text. He goes, "Yo, what?"
Like, how do I look like a Lego?
Now that you just asked that out loud, people are going to answer. So congrats.
Whatever.
I'm not asking the question. Nobody tell me how I look like a Lego. Just tell Brian how he does.
Anyways, Ville Husso was fantastic in this game, man. And, he's been hot and he's been cold lately. He went on a streak for a while there that was cold, and then he picked up back up again, but it's been spotty since then. But this was a game where it was like the Ville Husso you traded for. Absolutely. And he continues to do what he can with the defense that is in front of him. And, facing 35 shots, he made, 34 saves, 36 shots, 34 saves. He was great. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, this is definitely That was definitely the player you traded for. And this was kind of reminiscent of the first, like up until American Thanksgiving, right? Where we had said so many times, like this team would not be where they're at right now in the standings and in the point total if it wasn't for Husso and that. And he's like the most valuable player on the team and whatnot. And then he kind of went up and down, like we've talked about in December and January. But this was kind of reminiscent of that, where the Wings got outplayed for 2 periods. Yes, they put goals in the back of the net, and that's obviously the name of the game, and that's great. But this very much had a feeling of kind of the first third of the season there, where you were like, okay, this game goes a lot differently if we have mostly anyone else in net.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you had Nedeljkovic or Hellberg in, this is a closer game than it is. You did score 3 goals at even strength, so even without the power play goals, you still would have won. With Husso in net. And that's not the case if anyone else is in net. And that's just
right.
He did have a positive goal saved above expected, not a ton, but you don't need him to have, like, if he has a 0 goal saved above expected, that means he did his job. It means he saved every shot that the analytics say he should have. Again, not everyone puts stock into analytics, and that's fine, but he has been pretty consistent if you look over the course of the year. So he has been as this team still tries to find their identity, it's nice to know that when you have Husso in net, you're going to have an opportunity to win more times than not. So he's been great. Scotty, let's briefly mention that I did see rumors circulating on the interwebs that Dallas and Tampa and one other team has expressed interest. I'm trying to remember what that one other team is. Expressed interest in Tyler Bertuzzi. Tampa Bay, Dallas, and Edmonton. Of course, it's Edmonton. Who drafted Tyler Bertuzzi, right?
Right. Yep.
That was via Jeff Merrick. There were short extension talks, but apparently they went nowhere. So again, fully expect Bertuzzi to be dealt here in the next coming couple of weeks. But it bodes the question. That's not the right word. It begs the question. That's the word I'm looking for.
Atta boy.
I'm so professional. Like, what even could you get back for Tyler Bertuzzi? And I think that's a really good conversation to have. Maybe a couple days from now.
I think that, I would like to go in depth on that as we get closer to the deadline and, have an off day or whatnot. I think that could be an entire segment or two, or maybe even a show. Like, I think that there's a lot to unpack there. I would say I don't think, and look, like Yzerman got a lot for Mantha and whatnot, but I don't think it would be some incredible like multiple firsts and a player like type of package. Like,
You're not getting a Bo Horvat package,
right? Like it's a expiring deal on a dude that unfortunately just hasn't stayed on the ice really for a lot of the last 3 seasons, and in the one season he did had a really good year and all that, and that's absolutely true. But there's just been so much stuff that's kind of happened with him off the ice, and not like personality wise, whatever. Like Bert's fine, but just a lot of things have kept him off the ice, I guess is my point. And there's just been production wise this year, it hasn't been that great either. And the biggest thing for me, like this is something that I try to reiterate to a lot of people, is, and I think I've said it on this show before too, maybe last trade deadline, value is determined by market, not by talent.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The market of a player determines the return, not necessarily just straight up how good or bad of a player they are. So you can love Bert, you can love his style of play, you can think that he's great, but at the end of the day, an expiring deal is just doesn't hold a ton of weight unless you're like a superstar player anymore. Like an expiring deal is not something that's going to get you a crazy return. Now, I'm not saying they're going to trade him away for nothing either. I'm not saying we're going to get a fourth and we're just going to be looking around having a conversation about like, oh, I told you, like, excuse me, you're going to get a decent return. I'm not trying to say it's nothing, but I think there's a belief out there that, Bert's one of our best players. If you trade him, it's going to be for, like a Mantha-esque thing. And I don't think it's going to be that extreme.
I agree with you. One thing to keep in mind when you reference the Mantha trade is Mantha was signed to a multi-year deal at that point where Bert's
that's
expiring.
My point.
Yeah. I just want to make sure.
Like Mantha wasn't an expiring deal. That's my point.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of your sentiments. I will save my thoughts though for another episode. I think that probably could do. Let's see. The Wings play tomorrow, so tomorrow will be a game recap. Or today, by the time people are listening to this, they play today. So Tuesday's episode will be a game recap episode. But probably Wednesday's episode is a good opportunity to talk about it, just because we'll only have a game preview that day. Now, let's talk about the Vancouver Canucks. Wow. God.
Man, last time we played them, it was a crazy game.
Yeah, do you remember? The Red Wings won 5-2.
The sad part is, if I said no, I don't think that'd be very off-brand.
It wouldn't be off-brand for me. I think you're pretty good at remembering these things.
I didn't remember who we played Calgary like earlier this episode.
That is true. That did happen.
I think really, again, like we can reiterate the goalie thing again, like for sure. That's going to be one of the biggest factors in the game, obviously. But really, for me, anytime we play Vancouver, like I said it earlier too, but watching Quinn Hughes is something else, man. That dude's nice. And so that's going to be, I think, something to keep an eye on for sure, as everybody who plays Vancouver does. And then Elias Pettersson as well had a really good game, I thought, on Saturday. And so that can, again, obviously be something to keep an eye out for. But yeah, we just did a preview on this 2 days ago. So kind of the same sentiment. And we saw it play out. We saw what we talked about play out in front of our eyes. So yeah, I would say the biggest thing is still just put the puck in the back of the net because it's easier against Vancouver than against most teams.
I think there are a few things to look out for. One, see if Walman and Raymond come back, both being listed as day-to-day, as we don't know necessarily how badly they were hurt. And then also there is the goaltending situation, because I think we'll probably see a different goaltender in net on Monday. And then for the Wings, you may see Hellberg now that the Wings are going on this West Coast road trip. So I think you might see Hellberg once, maybe twice, to give Husso a chance to breathe. But again, Husso has now played a few games very well. So 2 games back-to-back where he's been really good. So they might ride that wave. We'll see. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see Hellberg at least once during this 4-game road trip.
Yeah, no, we talked about that on Friday too. Like that's I think the biggest outlook for the week is just West Coast trip, baby. Like that's the Northwest kind of trip. So
Western Canadian, I guess.
right. Well, Seattle there at the end of the week too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
They're
like
basically Canada.
but yeah, I fully expect Husso to get a night off at some point during this trip. So
Yeah, absolutely. X factor in this game, Scotty, shoot the puck, because their goalies can't stop it.
yeah, just get pucks on net, man.
Man, that's some great analysis. Pucks on net, boys.
This is 31 minutes into the show. I think we've had a pretty good show as far as analysis goes.
I'm not criticizing you.
At this point, please just get pucks on net.
I'm not criticizing you. I'm just saying it's just such a basic thing to say, but it's so true in this case because their goalies the goaltending situation is so sad.
For real.
But all right, Scotty, we'll wrap it up here. You got any final thoughts?
We ball.
We do ball. We'll be back on Tuesday with a game recap, same time, same place, to your team every day.
Every day.